Frames, Part 6, 9th of April. Cars today, all of them, every single car in Manord and the outlying farms. Weather, sunny intervals, well, one sunny interval, apart from that, rain. Note, eggs are so versatile. I remember this day because it was so random. No one normally takes any notice of me at all, but this day everyone in Manord was looking at me. When I left for school, Big Evans was on the forecourt talking to Dad about his noisy gearbox. Of course, I may not need a gearbox if it's right about the quarry, he said, and he winked at me. You going to find out for us then, young Dylan? You going to see what's going on up there? Can't, I said. School. Dad said, school can wait a bit, can't it? Not really. School's important, but it might be a bit rude not to go up, seeing as he did ask, and seeing as he is a guest in this town. I just said, got to go, and went. Mr. Morgan passed me in the high street in his Land Rover. He slowed right down and leaned out the window. Been up yet, young Dylan? He asked. I said, no, got school. Fair enough, no pressure, he said. I thought at first he must be talking about his tyres. But when we passed Mr. Chips, Mr. Choi was open up for the day, and he asked me if I'd been up yet too. Can't, it's school. Whenever you're ready, no pressure. When we got to the school gates, more or less everyone was asking me. It was like everyone in Manord had gone completely random. It was a relief to get inside the school. Or it would have been a relief if Miss Stannard hadn't said, "Oh, you're early, Dylan Hughes." "No, I'm not. Earlier than expected. I thought you were going up the mountain." "Couldn't," I said. "Why not?" "Well, school. I really think she should have known that, to be quite honest." "Oh," she looked at me for a long time, like she was trying to puzzle something out. Then she said, "Did you finish your letters to our friends in Gumby?" Which obviously I hadn't because of all the excitement about the new customer. "Right then, as you seem to be finding it hard to think of things to write about, I suggest you go up to the top of the mountain, see what's going on up there, and write about that." "What? Just go, miss? Up the mountain? By myself?" "I'm sure your father will only be too happy to help you with your homework. I'll text him." Dad got me from school and we went up the mountain. When we came through the cloud and into the sunshine, Dad stopped the car for a minute, got up and walked around it in the bright blue air for a while. He tried to get me to join him, but I stayed in the car. Then he drove right up to the wire, and Dad flashed the men with his headlights. The men on the quad bikes came trundling over. I thought they were going to chase us away again, but Dad said, "We've got," and the one in the hard hat said, "I know what you've got." He unhooked the wire for us, and we drove through. We passed a long, low shed with about 6 men standing around inside, and some more men sort of jogging towards it. "That was the canteen when this was mine," said Dad. He stopped the car, and I saw why the men were jogging. They were chasing a football. One of them trapped it, turned, and then booted it back. The wind caught it, and it came spinning towards us. I dived out of the car just in time to chest it down. I looked up. All of the men had their hands in their air, shouting, "Over here! Over here!" I thought if I do a good job here, they might ask me to join in. I was just lining up the shot when something happened. All the men put their hands down and walked off towards the shed. I looked behind me. Lester was walking towards us. He said, "Good morning." Dad said, "Morning. How was the FT?" "Yes, thanks for getting it." "And the petrol? The petrol was good, I hope?" "The petrol," said Lester, looking a bit bewildered, "was fine. The petrol was fine. I have something that might interest you." Then he noticed that I had a football. "You can leave that out there on the grass," he said. So that was it. I didn't even get a kick. We followed Lester towards the old quarry. Dad kept nudging me and hissing at me to look more interested and be polite. "We're going to go inside the mountain. I haven't been inside since I was your age. We used to come up here and play games and smoke ciggies. Then they put the cages over the entrance. This is going to be good." It would have been a lot better if we'd had a kick around. Walking into the mountain, I couldn't help thinking about Baxter Stockman and his cavernous lair full of Mauser robots. I grabbed hold of Dad's hand, but as it turned out, there were no robots, and it wasn't cavernous. It was quite cosy, really, like a tunnel, with soft yellow lights on the walls, and a nice warm breeze blowing from somewhere. Randomly, there were three narrow railway tracks on the floor. All around were piles of big wooden boxes. 2 men in fluorescent orange jackets picked one of the boxes up and set it on top of the wheels. Then one stood at the front and one at the back, and they trundled the box along the track, down into the mountain. Lester watched them until they were just 2 bobbing orange dots. Then he smiled at us and said, "Over here." One wooden box was leaning against the wall, with the big light shining on it. He made a stand right in front of the box. You couldn't see the orange dots now, but you could still hear the wheels grumbling off down the track. Lester lifted the lid off the crate and then stood back. The inside of the wooden box was even more unexpected than the inside of the mountain. It wasn't dry goods, and it wasn't toxic waste. It was a picture of a woman trying to read a book. The woman's face was in colour, but her clothes were in black and white, and the top of her head was missing. The most random thing, though, was that one of her boobies was sticking out of her dress, like something you see on the front of the papers. I looked at Dad. Lester looked at both of us. Then he said, "The Manchester Madonna." "Right," I said, and looked at Dad again. "It didn't look like Madonna to me." "By Michelangelo," said Lester. "Right. You've perhaps not seen it before. It's not as well known as some of the others. An interesting connection with your own little feathered Michelangelo, of course. This is a tempura." "Right. So it was made of eggs?" "This was made of eggs," said Dad. This had to be the most random thing ever. I was beginning to think that Lester was mad like Baxter Stockman. I decided to avoid eye contact and look at the woman in the picture instead. Far away I could just about hear shouting. The men outside must have started playing footy again. Lester was still talking. Yes, the rest of us make omelettes. Michelangelo makes a masterpiece. I think this justifies your affection for him." Dad said, "When you said made of eggs..." "I'm sure Dylan will explain in more detail," said Lester. "But basically, whereas modern painters use paints in which their pigment is dissolved in oil, Michelangelo and his contemporaries dissolved the pigment in egg white. It's called tempera." "Right. I know it sounds daft now, but it was only when he said that I realised it was a painting. It looked so real, even though it didn't look like a photograph. I didn't know what it was. As you can see, the painting is unfinished. The Madonna's clothes." Madonna again. Are blocked out in black, but one assumes they were going to be painted blue. Somehow it adds to the drama, as if the master was in such a hurry to capture the perfection of this girl's face, he couldn't wait for the paint to arrive. He knew that if he waited one morning, her beauty might have begun to fade. Isn't that what art is about? Rescuing beauty from the ravages of time, to save one moment from eternal silence? Definitely. According to Pliny, of course, this is how art began. A girl called Dibitate was saying goodbye to her lover. She was going to war. He was going to war. She put a candle beside him and traced his outline from the shadow cast against the wall. She wanted him to stay, you see. I imagine the maestro looking at this girl with the same feeling. He didn't have the right paints, but he felt he had to capture that moment. I imagine him waiting for a consignment of lapis lazuli, which never arrived. Lapis is a precious stone. They would have crushed it into powder, dissolved it into the egg, and then applied it here as a wash. You see, it's amazing that the drapery has real gravity, even though all we have is the shading. "Amazing," said Dad. "But then eggs are amazing, aren't they?" I didn't look up from the painting. She was definitely nothing like Madonna, even when she was young. There were some boys in the picture too, too little and too big. The little ones were messing about, trying to stop her reading. One of the bigger boys seemed to be holding an old sock, and they were both staring at it really closely, like it was a clue or something. You could make out the outlines of two other people in the background, waiting to be coloured in like a colouring book, or like they were just materialising on a teleporter platform. The thing is, even though the rest of the picture was mad, even though the top of the woman's head was missing, the face looked real. It looked warm. "A painting like this," said Dad. "Obviously it puts omelette right in the shade, unless you were really hungry. But while we were talking about eggs, I just want to say that we can do you an egg sandwich. Scrambled eggs, omelette, anything you like." That's how immense my dad is. Even when we were stuck in this weird technodrome thing with a mad inventor and a picture made of eggs, he never lost focus. He was still thinking about the Snowdonia Oasis auto marble. Lester said, "Actually, I never eat eggs." "Right then, but what about all these men up here? Are they up here for long? Because we do outside catering. Or we could do. We'd like to." "I don't want to keep you," said Lester. "I'm sure Dylan has to get to school." "Well, not really. I mean, this is educational when you think about it, isn't it? We could tell Miss Stannard that..." "No," said Lester, a bit too quick. "No, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to be discreet about this. I'd rather you didn't talk to anyone about this, to no one at all. I shouldn't have mentioned it, really. Dad promised we'd keep it to ourselves. Not that it's easy to keep secrets in a town like this, but we'll do our best." "Thank you. So, what is the secret?" "I'm sorry? What is it you're doing up here?" probably the less we say about that, the better, really. Thank you for coming. Dad didn't say anything until we were back in Planet Dishcloth, but I could see he was thinking about it, trying to figure it all out. After a while he said, that was completely... He looked out the window at the cloud, trying to find the right word. Completely incomprehensible. Do you think we might be talking about different Michelangelos? I think we might. That's the end of part A of this section 6.